Hi everybody. Okay. So the second movie I watched this weekend was called The Associate. It was made in 1996 and it stars Whoopi Goldberg and Diane Wiest and BB Newirth and Tim Daly in the main character roles. Okay. So Whoopi Goldberg plays a woman named Laurel Ayres, Laurel Ayres. This is important, so remember it. She works in a big investment firm, and she has a coworker, and she has more seniority than her coworker. So there's a position that needs to be filled, so she should ultimately get it, right? However, because she's a woman, she doesn't get it. So she does the right thing, in my opinion, and quits the job. But that means she's out of a job, so then she creates her own investment firm because she's had a lot of ideas over the years and no one's taken her seriously and or used her ideas, and or the ones they have used they've taken credit for, like they came up with the idea themselves. So she goes out and she has her Rolodex, and back in the day, for all the young people out there that might be listening to this, watching this, a Rolodex is a phone book, but made up of business contacts. And what you do is you keep a file of all the people you know, and you spin it. So if you want to get to a certain name faster than the others, you spin it, you find the name, you call the person, whatever. But it's made up of pieces of paper that you stick in the slots, and then when you want to find it, that's how you find it, right? So the day after she quits, she starts calling people on her Rolodex. And everybody says, oh, that's great, but you don't have a partner. You need a partner because apparently they don't think a woman can run an investment firm successfully on her own. Now, as a woman, I, categorically disagree with this, but that was the script. So she makes up this person, and I mean makes up out of thin air, a white male in his 60s. You'll have to remember that also, because now she had to rebrand her name and put her name last, Cuddy and Ayres. So they put the male name before the female name because of certain reasons. And then all of a sudden, she's now successful because people don't mind dealing with a man versus a woman. Problem is that along the way, people want to meet this man. And like I said before, she made it out of thin air. So he does not exist. Okay. Okay. Now, Diane Wiest, known for a bunch of characters. She was the mother on Edward Scissorhands. She had a great role on Law and Order for years. And yeah, she's wonderful. She's had a lot of roles for many years. In this film, she plays the secretary, Sally. Poor Sally, is seen as just a secretary. She's not any good at anything else. People misuse her. People don't know what her worth is until she asks for a job from Laurel or Cuddy too, also. But of course, Whoopi Goldberg says you can't meet him, and she makes up excuses along the way as to why people can't meet this guy, right? Okay, so then Diane Wiest's character, Sally, becomes her secretary, and they become friends over the years, but over a long time. And Laurel finally understands Sally's worth because she had everything alphabetized and indexed and all that stuff. So she's really good. Okay. So in the midst of all this, Laurel has to appear as Cuddy finally. And Laurel just happens to have a friend who can make a mask for another person. And then when she says she has to be a white male, they both are in total shock and almost lose it. But the friend makes her mask to look like an old white male. And people have no idea that it's her underneath it. Okay, so of course hilarity ensues, and then also where Bebe Neuwirth comes in. Bebe Neuwirth, famous for her role on Cheers and Frasier, and she was also on Law and Order SVU, and she's done a lot of guest things, and this was a complete departure from that role, because that role was Lilith. Lilith was very high-strung, psychiatrist, that whole thing. Okay. This character is Camille, and she works for a bunch of men, but she also can't keep her trap shut. So Laurel finds that out. So then when she wants someone to spread the word, she tells Camille, and by lunchtime the next day, everybody knows about whatever they weren't supposed to know about. Okay. So also in the midst of this, Camille falls in love with Cuddy, or she thinks she's in love with him, because he's an old, rich, white guy, right? Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, and she finally has to come clean, and she tries to get rid of the character, and it just doesn't work. And Diane Wiest, and she is thrown in jail. They're thrown in jail, and over Christmas, actually. And one was arrested, detained, whatever, at Christmas Eve dinner. And also, Laurel had a tradition of lighting a candle for her father on Christmas Eve, but she couldn't do it because she was in jail. So then she gets exonerated because someone else, the old guy, Tim Daly, her coworker, says that he had a meeting with him and that he's alive still. So she's no longer, suspected of anything. So then the final scene of the movie is she goes to the Peabody Club. And the Peabody Club is a male-only club, and they've decided to induct this guy, Cuddy, who they'd never met, into their society. So she makes an appearance as him in mask, and before somebody else is going to take the award, because apparently he's not there, they get word that he is there. And then she comes up and makes a speech at first and says, "You don't know who I am." And at some point she rips off the mask so they see it's her, and Camille faints straight away. And everybody else is in shock. There's old people with oxygen because they can't believe it. They lost their breath. Some people look like they're about to pass out. That's the whole room. Okay? So the point of the movie is she gets the last laugh, but I find it kind of ironic and somewhat stupid that a woman has to be a man to get any kind of credit. To pretend she's a man to get any kind of credit in that field. So, and then the ultimate scene is where her coworker has to find work. So he tries to work for her company, and Diane Wiest as the executive or whatever. I'm sure she ranked up by the end of the movie. But she says, I know I know my associate, and I don't think that she would be okay if I hired you. So the moral of the story is that he's left with no job and no job prospects, and she is successful. I thought it was an interesting movie. There are a couple of things that would have changed, but you also have to understand that this is almost 30 years ago. So would this movie play today and actually be relatable? Somewhat, but not totally. And a lot of people would have um, some pushback on the things I said, I would believe. So, all right. Bye, guys.